Hey, good morning.
Good morning. What? It's Wednesday, and you get a 2-for-1 special right here. Thanks for joining us.
I was really trying to catch him while he was reading these names. You'll get to it here in a little bit, but I couldn't. I missed it.
It's a good thing that it says recording in progress. Thank you, technology. I was not surprised. Because when we really get ready to jump in here into Genesis, we go through a lot of the genealogies, which have a lot of cool names. But in the meantime, before we jump in, Christopher, how's it going?
It's going good. So we got a lot of stuff going on. You 714 people. Maybe you feel it. This time of the year always just feels so busy. Like, we got a rhythm going again, but we also have all these, sports are going on. Mm-hmm. School homework is in full gear usually. We have projects at home we're trying to get done before it gets too cold.
We've got fall things that we're doing, like hay rides. Actually, my kids and we all went to a homeschool group. They did a big hay ride. Like, there was a lot of people there. There's a lot of kids. Of course, homeschool families very often have larger families by today's standards. So there was a lot of kids running around for this hay ride. We had a blast.
That's cool. Yeah. And so anyways, doing good. It's just, I can tell my plate's full right now. So I'm being cautious and careful and taking my time, making sure I spend time with God and His Word.
Your family. Yeah.
This is how I am, I would say, staying healthy emotionally and mentally as I get through some of these, honestly, like, busy times. But it's good. It's a good busy. I wouldn't say I'm worn out or exhausted. It's just, I can tell there's a lot there.
So. Well, speaking of taking some time, if anyone is hoping to see me in the Angola campus this Sunday, I'm taking a few days off. I'm taking my boys to this really big Trail Life camping trip. Levi, what's Trail Life? I don't mind doing a tiny little plug for Trail Life because it's Christ-centered and it's boy-focused. So it is essentially a Christian group that got together and sort of, we can't officially say it's the Christian Boy Scouts because that's not really how it works. But it's camping and character development and all that sort of thing.
But they saw the things that Boy Scouts was lacking in a Christian walk.
So they sort of regrouped.
Yeah.
And it's been around for 10 years, and there's been a chapter in Angola for like 6 years.
That's awesome.
So I take all 4 of my boys. We're going to go and camp in this nice chilly weather we're expecting.
Yeah. You know what? Chilly camping is good. All right. So let's jump into the Bible. I know some of you guys don't.
Good place.
Some of you guys are just like, let's just read the Bible. So, hey, that's what we're going to do. And this is actually a chapter, I'm admitting. I don't remember it. Like, I know I read it because I read through Genesis, but I'm hitting this chapter going like, this is kind of a cool chapter that I think the big story before and the big story after, this is just like, you have to get through this to get to the stories, but this is a good one.
This is good. We kind of capture some of the culture of the time too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's good stuff to be had here.
So here we go.
Who's reading? Who's going to read?
Actually, if you don't mind reading.
I always like reading. Okay. I was that kid in school. Who wants to read, class? Let me. Jacob's journey to Egypt is Genesis 46. I'm reading out of the New Living Translation today. And it says, so Jacob set out for Egypt with all his possessions. And when he came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. Sorry, I looked away. Jacob's father is Isaac, for the record. Verse 2, during the night, God spoke to him in a vision. Jacob, Jacob, he called. Here I am, Jacob replied. I am God, the God of your father, the voice said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make your family into a great nation. I will go with you. That's enough encouragement I need today right there. I will go with you down to Egypt, and I will bring you back again. You will die in Egypt, but Joseph will be with you to close your eyes. Yeah. So Jacob left Beersheba, and his sons took him to Egypt. They carried him and their little ones and their wives in the wagons Pharaoh had provided for them. They also took all their livestock and all their personal belongings they had acquired in the land of Canaan. So Jacob and his entire family went to Egypt, sons and grandsons, daughters and granddaughters, all his descendants. And starting here with verse 8, it gives a detailed account of their genealogy. So
Let's just do
in
a
other
whoa.
words, they typed in ancestry.com and they typed in, my name is Isaac.
Let's just do a whoa, and we'll talk over the first 7 verses.
Okay.
Which, again, this is like one of those cool things where we just read the whole amazing story of Joseph, and in the end, you see his forgiveness for his brothers, and how even Joseph realizes that the evil they did to him, God used for good and meant for it to happen, because if it wasn't for that, man, they might have starved as a family. And so here we go. And then getting into this, yeah, so Israel, Jacob was renamed Israel. Let's just take a moment for that. I know you probably already talked about it. You heard it multiple times. Maybe someone new here. The reason why Israel, the country, is called Israel is because Jacob. So we had Abraham, which is the promise of this great nation that's going to change the world. We have Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham was like 100 years old when he had Isaac. And then Isaac had twins, and the second son, not the first, was given the promise, showing that God has his own plans. God does what he wants. He's not about hierarchy. He's about the heart.
Right.
Then with Jacob, yep, Jacob is the one where at one point God told it, like he wrestled with God, which I don't know what that looked like. I'm a wrestler, so I think that's really cool. And they renamed Jacob Israel. And then from that point on, the whole group was known as the Israelites. The people of Israel. And that's really cool. So then here you're starting to see they're calling him by this new name. So Israel took his journey to head, to Beersheba, to go on to Egypt to be with Joseph and the whole family going there to survive because it was a famine. But man, that one spot, you can just see there's anxiety happening. And God decides to speak to Joseph again. This is not the first time for Joseph, and tell him, hey, not Joseph, sorry, Jacob. First speaks to Jacob again to say, hey, don't have anxiety. I'm with you. This is going to be good.
Well, we can see here some little snippets of culture here, because he's referring to the God that he gave sacrifices to. He says he offered sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. Like it was significant to him that this is part of our heritage, that this connects me to my family. And later on, when God himself, God knows how to speak to us in our own terms. God said, I am God, the God of your father. And that God said, this is how I'm introducing myself to you. This is how I'm showing you who I am, And that's when he said, don't be afraid to go down to Egypt. In other words, like you were saying, he was afraid. He was like, what's going on? I've lived in the same place forever. And now I'm taking everything I own and every person that's important to me and moving to another country.
Yeah. And with everything you just said, the culture thing is so cool. Later on, I think it's later on in the Old Testament, you see it says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you see prophets say, we worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's important. This is their heritage. They hold on to this because this is the God. There is no other God other than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Exactly. So
because in that time period too, there's like all kinds of gods you can worship.
We think that we have lots of religious systems now. It does not compare to that time in history.
Not even close.
I was actually just reading that pretty recently, getting ready for a series we're working on, that still 75% of the world, don't quote me on any of this because now but the idea is that 75% of the world believes in the world's top 3 religions.
Yeah, so 75% is monotheistic. Where
it's monotheistic.
Yeah. Maybe it was opposite before, because monotheistic means one God.
Right.
I could believe that it was opposite. It used to be 75% was polytheistic, multiple gods. The Roman world, the Greek world, all these, Persia, all these giant nations were all believing in multiple gods. And so
people would have statues of multiple gods in their home, like as a standard thing.
And you had a different god for different things. So you wanted to get pregnant, you pray to this god. You want to have a good crop, you pray to this god. And it was like you pick the god for the thing you wanted. And using gods that way, we look at it now and go, that's silly. But we also are we were revealed. Like God revealed himself through Jesus, so we know what he's like.
Exactly.
And it's about a relationship. He's not a genie. You don't just get a wish what you want. So anyways, that's another rant for another day. Back to this.
So Jacob was being given a lot. He's like, you're going to go there. That's where you're going to die. And that's where your family will be. But I will bring you back. So I wonder if he's thinking, oh, so 10 years after I die, they'll be back in the land of Canaan.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
That is not how it works. It doesn't work. That is not how history unfolded.
But see, that's the promise. And some people held on to that promise. Like Moses was obviously one who held on to the promise. We learned about him later. Even he was a little like iffy on it because God has to convince him. But yeah, the promise, they're going to come back, and they do. But man,
So
not the way they want.
like the next part spells out like this was a complete move. All of their children, their wives, their livestock, their personal belongings, all the personal belongings. I know it's been a few years since you moved, but do you remember how fun it was to move like within the same state?
I haven't moved in 11 years, but yeah, like
I moved
that
3
was
years
a
ago.
painful
and
enough
hated it.
experience.
And you
You
get
did-
rid of stuff. You throw away all kinds of stuff. Of course, that's the American culture. Throw away
I could-
stuff. But
I could use a move for that. Let's
Yes.
move houses just once to throw away all the crap I collected.
but it says that they took all their livestock, all their personal belongings,
Yeah.
his entire family, and then to let you know that this is how significant it was that they were moving. They give you names of the descendants of Israel,
Yeah.
the sons of Jacob, who went to Egypt.
So this is also, like you said, the heritage thing. We keep track of this because they thought it was important, and they wanted to know where they came from. So, yeah. What else do you want to say about these names?
Well, I was just going to say that it also serves. Somebody once asked me, why do we have all those like long chapters? Somebody not that long ago, of all the names of all that, and I said, well, it also serves to help us verify the validity of these scriptures, the historical accuracy of these pictures or these scriptures, because there are other contemporary writings of the day that just as examples that will talk about Kohath and Merari. Some of these. Hey, if you've got the Bible app and you're reading along in here, look at some of these names and comment your favorite one below, just for fun.
Please.
I love how we all comment at the bottom, but 80% of it is good morning, amen, good to see you. Let's spice it up a little bit. And actually, this part of the Bible I came to when we first found out we were having our first child, and we're having a boy. I came to here because it's like, I'm looking for a name that's not weird and not overdone, and that narrows it down really quick because Christians have used all the names that are not weird.
Merari, that's a good one. Merari.
Like Reuben,
going to make fun of that.
Reuben's a pretty common one. Hezron.
So I think that is, you're right. It's kind of weird to look at these names now, but back then these were normal names. And later on, when you say this was the son of this person, you could actually come back to this. You can come back and reference. Now, here's the part I want to say is important. We're not going to read through all the names because that can get boring. You guys read them and seriously post a name you like, or maybe one you think is ridiculous. I don't know. But in here, I want to say, just look how they break it down. Now you have the Israel and the tribes of Israel that we're going to hear about later. And the tribes had different jobs. Only the king could come from this tribe. Only the priest could come from this tribe. Like, they had certain things. Now, when we jump into this list, you can see those tribes, but you can also see who they came from. Remember, Jacob had Leah and Rachel, but then they also gave their slave girls to him. So there's like 4 women here.
They were making these babies, yeah.
Israel had, and so there's 12 kids altogether. And like I said last Wednesday, you can see at the very end, like 19, Rachel, Jacob's favorite wife. It doesn't say favorite here, but Jacob's wife that he wanted all along. He had Joseph and Benjamin. There's a reason why he had a special heart for Joseph and Benjamin. They came from the wife he really wanted all along.
They had a lot of daughters.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at all these names, only 12 of them were the sons. Woo! They had a lot of girls.
And it says 33. Verse 15 says there were 33.
Through Leah. Leah had 33 children.
That is crazy.
So listen, all y'all haters. Chris over here, wherever I'm pointing to him, has 5 kids. I call that respectable, not crazy. Stop telling people 5 kids are crazy. We like kids. If you don't like kids, don't have 5. I have 6. If you don't like kids, don't have 6. Okay? Just work it out yourself.
Also,
don't judge us.
Maybe you 714ers can help me out with this. I think Levi is not done because 6 is an unholy number. He needs to have
5 is less. Listen, Jesus or God created for 6 days. On the 7th he rested.
It's the 7th he rested. But so, yeah,
the story does continue.
Again, you're 714ers, you're reading the Bible. I'm hoping you're all at least understanding. Like, yeah, look at this. These 33 girls, 12 boys, 33 girls. That's not even all of them. There's more girls than that. Yeah, we're not even close to the amount of kids we could have. But I will say, you guys are probably on our side, I hope. And we just help other people understand. Like, no, we're not Catholic. We really just wanted a big family. We purposely, we know what causes it. That's why we have so many. Like, we wanted this. And it's a good thing. And we look at big families with adults, adult kids those are cool families usually. Like, I love when I watch these big families get together for a Sunday and the house is so full. That's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah, it's hard right now. 5 little kids, 6 little kids is hard, but man, this is cool.
My question I ask people is, can you help me decide which one I wish I didn't have? Sorry. Sometimes I get cynical.
Little
Maybe we should get back to God's word to get us grounded. Okay.
So with that being
said, the story, this does jump back into the story, like follow along with the story in verse 28. Gave us a long, detailed list of who went. Well, what we can walk away with at the very minimum is it was a big deal that this many people moved.
Wait, I just want to point out one more thing.
I'll do it. Yep.
Verse 26 says, all the persons in Jacob who came with his body, besides Jacob's sons, were 66 persons in all. I just
not counting his sons' wives.
Not including his sons' wives. 66 persons in all. That is another number that's special. 666 is not good, but 66 books in the Bible, 66 chapters in Isaiah. 66 is a normal thing that tends to be another good-ish number. Like, you don't see it very often, but that's just cool.
So anyone who's got some extra time on your hand, go through Genesis 46 and find out because it's all in there. Find out the actual numbers, because it told you how many children Leah had, how many this. Yes, it's all there. I would be interested to see what that number is without Googling it. So there's a fun project for you.
That's cool.
But then at verse 28 is when the story jumps back in. Okay. So Jacob's family arrives in Goshen, not Goshen, Indiana, in case you're wondering. That happened later in history.
Okay.
As they neared this destination, verse 28, Jacob sent Judah ahead to meet Joseph. That's foreshadowing. Pin that one for later. Probably won't happen today. Jacob sent Judah ahead to meet Joseph and get directions to the region of Goshen. And when they finally arrived there, Joseph prepared his chariot and traveled to Goshen to meet his father Jacob. Can you imagine how excited you'd be? When Joseph arrived, he embraced his father and wept, holding him for a long time. Finally, Jacob said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face again and know you are still alive." I can't imagine the emotions. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's entire family, "I will go to Pharaoh and tell him, 'My brothers and my father's entire family have come to me from the land of Canaan. These men are shepherds, and they raise livestock. They have brought with them their flocks and herds and everything their own." See? Then he said, "When Pharaoh calls for you and asks you about your occupation, you must tell him, 'We, your servants, have raised livestock all of our lives, as our ancestors have always done.' When you tell him this, he will let you live here in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians despise shepherds." He's kind of giving him a heads up. He's like, listen, Egyptians don't have a high opinion of shepherds, So we really need to get our story straight and be honest. Okay. I'm going to tell them you're shepherds. That's all you've ever known how to do. You stick to that story too. Because
Well,
there's other parts in the Bible where somebody
here-
lies to protect themselves, right?
this is what this is. This is actually telling the truth to protect themselves.
Look at that.
So we want to remember this. Later on, you see it. It's a common theme. These are God's chosen people. God does not want them intermingling or losing their identity. Their identity
No, that's
is
true.
God's people. So he's telling them, say this because they find you an abomination. They will not marry you. They will not come and be a part of your group. So you can still be the Israelites, because this was important to them.
Right.
It was important that they did not lose their identity because they are God's people. So they actually were given the land of Goshen, which is kind of like, that's away from Egypt. Like it's kind of like a offset area, and they would be allowed to live there and they wouldn't mingle. So fun
Yeah,
fact.
that's a good point. That sometimes you can use something negative, like, that somebody's wrong opinion. Use it for a positive. Okay. You don't like Christians. Then I don't have to worry about like looking for a future mate in you. Whatever.
Right. Well, there you go. But it was really, that's a cool fun fact. And that whole rest of the story, just seeing that they got to Goshen, they got to this part. Now it is still part of Egypt, and later on you see what happens. Actually, very quickly, you see Joseph is gone, and the next pharaohs forget about Joseph and forget about the other pharaoh and
Exactly.
what happened. And the Israelites are considered dirty shepherds, so they end up becoming slaves. And you can kind of
Slave,
see
yeah.
the process of why it happened a little clearer through reading this. But it's, you said Jacob a couple times, so your version must say Jacob. Mine
Right.
keeps saying Israel every time.
Well, that's the
Israel,
nice thing about the Bible app too. Then is, I know earlier I tried to show you it doesn't like my screen, but there'll be little notes on there, like 3 little dots next to a word, and you can tap on it, and just like in your paper Bible has notes at the bottom, it will pull up the note, and it said like it's Israel, said and mentioned Israel. So use those little dots. That might be the only time you're told that today, but let's see here. No, it's mad at me. But in Hebrew, it's Israel. But then it also tells you that it's also in verse 29 and verse 30.
Yeah, but your version too is trying to be clear, because when you read the original, like when you try to read close to what the original text is, it goes Jacob, Israel, it flips back and forth. And if you're
Right.
not familiar, it gets confusing. And so the NLT makes it easier to understand the story. NLT is not a bad version.
But they also don't want to like erase the fact that
Nope.
Israel was the name being used there.
They put
So
like a
they
little note.
give you a note, get you another note, get you another note.
Yeah.
I know sometimes people even say, like, you know what, there's different verses that say different things in different versions. How do you know? A lot of the times that version will have accounted for
Yeah.
that difference and say some versions, instead of saying father, said the wife of your mother or the husband of your mother, or something along those
So
lines.
they just switch it to make
So
it.
those the tiny little discrepancies can be accounted for and actually make us realize that the Bible couldn't have been made up. Because if you made something up, you would fix all your little mistakes first, wouldn't you?
Live in space. Okay, so would you give us what's your final word out of all this chapter? Is there something that, like, you know what, this is your takeaway?
I don't know, the little thing that stuck out to me this time that I've read this, because I've been through Genesis a few times, is that God was telling him, I'm the God of your father. And that means something. So that can be a challenge to me as a dad, to say, I want my kids to have such a high opinion of the way I've held myself and my integrity, the way I've treated them, and the way that I've worshiped God, that they are compelled to say, that is the God of my father. That is a reason I do trust that there's a loving Father in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So some of you out there are already like, well, it's already too late. No, it's not.
Or I want to just twist that a little bit more and just go farther and say, so maybe you don't have kids right now, or your kids are growing, whatever it is. There's plenty of people out there that are watching you that you get to interact with every day.
Yes.
Jesus said, if you deny me before others, I'll deny you before the Father. And so I asked that question. Are are people looking at us and going, they're following a God, or they're Christians, they're following what they think is God? Do they know that of you? Because maybe eventually they might say, yeah, I'm following the God that Chris follows. I follow the God that Levi follows. Like, are they saying that about you? And we want that for our kids, but what about other people? Do they notice that you follow God? Do they see that? And does it make any difference in the world at all?
Right. And does the way you follow God help others to do the same?
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a good challenge for the day. And the one I stuck with is just such a good promise. This story is showing that God had a plan all along. In the middle of our darkness, in the middle of our hard moments, we don't see the plan, the big plan that God had. And he had a big plan all along for Israel, and there's a plan for us. He prepared good stuff for us to walk into. We need to trust that. And so sometimes it gets hard, and we're like, where are you, God? But he's been there the whole time. And so this story reminds us, like, they're put in Egypt on purpose, and they're going to come back. But the way they came back wasn't exactly fun. What happened in Egypt wasn't exactly fun, but it was all for a reason. And God is showing who he is. And our part is to keep following him and showing others who he is, even in the middle of the worst moments in our life. So
you should be a preacher.
I should be. All right. Hey, well, let's pray it out and call it a Wednesday.
Let's do it.
Oh, God, you are our Father, the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We are so glad that we get to call you our Heavenly Father. And Lord, I just ask you, help us to remember who you are and what you're doing. Remember these stories as just promises that you are always there and you are working things out. And Lord, I also ask that you'll help us to live our life in that way, that people will see it, that they'll see you, and that we will be just so many opportunities given to us to share why we believe what we believe and who you are and who you want to be in their lives too. I pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right, Chris.
Crass.
All right, Chris. All right, Chris. It's as usual. It's good to talk to you. Good to get into the word. Love being able to just read the word and talk about it. Talk about the word. Woo! I'll be checking these comments later for cool Hebrew names.
Right. All right. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. Bye.